Hey guys, what's up? My name's Daniel McLaughlin and welcome back to the YouTube channel. Today, let's talk about Mac DeMarco. He's a songwriter and a producer. He's got 6 albums out, each with its own kind of unique style, with a ton of cool guitar parts. So let's get into it. Even though a lot of Mac's style comes across in his music, kind of the slacker, smoking a lot of cigarettes, hanging out vibe, his music is kind of anything but. Actually, Mac has come to say before that he doesn't really understand the whole slacker association thing.
The slacker thing, that thing, I mean, it doesn't bother me. People can, it makes sense that his music is laid back or whatever, but I tour a lot. Like, I tour a lot. I'm not killing myself touring. That's not slacking off, for fuck's sake, you know?
Especially when you come down to listen to the music, it's really well crafted, and you can tell that a lot of work goes into it. It's also no secret that Mac's stuff is guitar heavy, and being the guitarist of his touring group as well, I'd be willing to wager that the guitar comes up as the primary part of a lot of his music. As in, he's probably reaching for a guitar more often than not when he needs to fill out the sound.
This is the only instrument that I'm even close to being acceptable at playing, I think. But it's just the easiest way for me to get what I'm thinking out.
Even though he's got a really great collection of vintage synths, and the dude knows how to get a really punchy drum sound, guitar is kind of an integral part of his production. But now the tone of the guitar sounds so unique, so different. It's something that I've spent a lot of time thinking about how he gets that sound. So let's talk about a few of the things that I think are what gets Mac his signature sound. Now, if you don't know, a lot of Mac's earlier albums were recorded with tape machines, or a single tape machine. He seemed to prefer a more analog workflow at the time.
If I can't twist it with my fingers, it's not happening.
And he was using a 1/4-inch tape-based tape machine known as a Fostex A8. Now, tape is measured in inches, and the industry standard for tape is about 2 inches in width. Now, when you go lower in width, it results in a little bit of a lower fidelity signal, a little bit less dynamic range. So this Fostex recorder running 1/4-inch tape gave him that lower quality of recording that I think he became known for during that era of 2 and Salad days. Now, specifically with that album 2, I think he was manipulating the tape, speeding it up and slowing it down to get different tones, textures, timbres. You can tell this is actually the case because some of the songs are not perfectly in tune if you've ever tried playing along to Ode to Viceroy or something. Oh, the light changed. As he continued to release albums, the tape machine seemed to get a little bit better. The EP called Another One used a TAC 3340, which was still 1/4-inch tape, but it had a lower wow and flutter factor. This wow and flutter effect is actually a characteristic of a tape machine working improperly, and it actually gives a little bit of a fluctuation to the pitch of the track.
It's just one wiggly worm.
But this actually isn't a bad thing, considering that Mac DeMarco's lo-fi sound probably benefited from a little bit of that fluctuation, and that's something we'll get to in a little bit. Another thing that a tape machine would impart onto a track is a subtle harmonic saturation. Maybe not so subtle when you're slamming it with a loud guitar amp. It actually will probably clip the input section and result in kind of a cool distortion effect. See, when you've got a tape machine, or tape emulation in this case, it stays relatively clean. But when you hit it, it starts to break up in kind of an interesting way. Again, I think you hear a lot of this in the albums 2 and Salad Days. Something that a lot of guitar players associate with Mac DeMarco is his use of the chorus pedal, which chorus in its own is an unaffected pitch matched with a fluctuating pitch, something that we call vibrato.
You got your thing here, and then the chorus is just over here, a little bit later, jiggling. But if you could just get the jiggle, man, oh, I liked that a lot.
This effect, though, in addition to the tape machine, in addition to some of the things that we're going to cover later with the whammy bar, give this kind of implication that he's out of tune a lot, without really being out of tune.
Just makes it a little out of tune,
And it's that slightly lazy and mellow sound that we know to be associated with Mac DeMarco. Tape Op magazine went as far to say that Mac DeMarco joined the adult world when he recorded the album This Old Dog on Ableton and a laptop. which I think sounds a little weird to say. But this old dog definitely sounds a little bit more high fidelity and lends itself to a little bit more of a mature sound. It still sounds like Mac DeMarco though, and I think the reason for that is that his songwriting is so definitive. Let's talk about some of the harmonic stuff that goes into his songs. So his use of some really nice complex chord movements and harmony make for some really exciting musical moments. Mac manages to slip in a little bit of modal mixture from time to time that, when paired with some of his lyrics, match the emotional context in a really nice way. So the song Still Beating off of This Old Dog actually implies this melancholic chord that we call the minor 4. This minor 4 is used quite a bit in songwriting to give this nostalgic downward turn that can be really nice. The cool thing about this is it's implied in the guitar riff. So it's this B minor chord right here, moving down to a F sharp major. Another one is another one off of the album, Another One. This song is in the key of B and uses a really nice D chord in the middle of the chord progression. This chord, in theory, is known as a major flat 3 chord. The really cool thing about this chord is it shares a common tone relationship with the chord that follows it, which is an E flat minor chord. The two of those together sound like this. If you notice, they both share that F sharp. That chord progression altogether sounds like this. This song also lends itself to talk about Mac DeMarco's songcraft, given that he connects the tonic of the key, the B, up to the major flat 3, which is the D, with a really nice line. The chorus with that line sounds like this. Now, the last song I want to talk about is Ode to Viceroy, which was the song that got me into Mac DeMarco in the first place. Really, I was captured by just that first chord. I think we all know it at this point. Given that this song is kind of in between keys, I'm just going to call this chord a minor flat 5 chord that moves to the 4 chord, which then moves to the 1 chord, which is a really cool chord progression. Kind of a nice take on that subtension, tension, resolution thing that we get from like a... Right? This is the subtension, this is the tension, this is the resolution. With Mac DeMarco's Ode to Viceroy, we have subtension, and then kind of a weird tension. Not really tension, because this feels very resolute. And then resolution. And then back to bigger tension. I think that's a really cool way of taking chords that we're used to and making them fresh. Now, all this talk on harmonic structures can be unique and interesting again, but I think it's the guitar tone that really sells a lot of this stuff. Because a piano could play this chord, and it would sound fine, it sounds good, but it's that jangly, nasty, in-your-face, with the whammy bar sound that sells it. So talking strictly about his guitars and his unique deployment of the guitars, Mac is known for using that old Tascam guitar that's on the cover of the album too. Apparently that guitar would fall apart after shows often, and so he switched over to Fender Strats, and it seems like he's playing them through Silverface and Blackface, Deluxe, and Twin reverbs. I would say that Mac isn't exactly a toneful guitarist though, as in he doesn't get as much tone as he could from the guitar compared to a more practiced guitarist. And if you don't know what I mean by that, check out my last week's video on improving your guitar tone without really spending any money. Now that being said, him being not toneful is still part of his sound. And quite frankly, his deployment of guitar parts in some of the areas of the guitar that don't sound as good is what makes him sound like himself. Songs like My Kind of Woman that have a big jangly guitar part right in the forefront, almost really at the same volume as a lead vocal, also reinforced by his use of a capo on the electric guitar. Now, there's nothing wrong with using a capo on an electric guitar, but it's not as commonplace. A lot of the time the capo pushes the strings out of tune and messes with the overall intonation of the guitar. But again, with that out of tune nature of Mac's music, it kind of works.
Just makes it a little out of tune, you know?
Now to talk a little bit more about Mac's guitar slidiness, or what we'd call glissando, or slidiness. Mac uses his whammy bar quite a bit. You can hear it on the song Ode to Viceroy, you can hear it on the song Salad Days. It makes him sound just ever so out of tune, something that we've talked about a lot. But specifically, it makes him sound consistently flat. Now, being flat compared to being sharp is a big difference. It's akin to with tempos if you're rushing or dragging. When you're dragging, you sound lazy, you sound behind. Sometimes it can feel a little bit better when it's dragging, but when you're rushing, it sounds ahead of the beat, you sound clumsy, you sound like you're stepping over yourself. To the same degree, you tend to hear the mistake in being sharp compared to being flat a little bit more. Being just a little bit flat can make you sound lazy, bloated, but the cool thing is you can get that sound just by holding on to your whammy bar while you play. What your hand will do is just naturally depress the whammy bar just a hair, enough to give you that flat sound. Check it out. Now you'd probably think with all this talk about lazy glissando, I'd probably have something to say about his slide playing. Well, I actually don't. It's pretty good, and it's appropriate for his style of playing. The song The Way You Love Her is kind of Mac's de facto slide riff song, and it's good. It's really good. It's in time. There's nothing really lazy about it. Also, have you noticed that the majority of Mac's songs have guitar riffs? Let's bring guitar riffs back. I love guitar riffs. So in conclusion, if you dig Mac DeMarco, you might want to check out some of his influences. People like Jonathan Richman, Christopher Cross, even Weezer to a certain degree. His sound has definitely influenced this newer generation of musicians. One of my favorites is a guy named McGee, that's mk.gee. Check out some of his stuff, it's actually really cool. It's not the same as Mac DeMarco, for sure, but there's some really cool songwriting, some killer guitar playing, really cool production too. I definitely recommend a listen. Anyway, that's the video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this type of video, please leave me a like. I'd really appreciate it. And I will see you guys in the next one.